meeting to order at 1:30. We will start with roll call. Thank you.
Councilmember Candelas?
Here.
Ortiz?
Present.
Foley?
Here.
Davis?
Here.
And Cohen.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have a long agenda today, so we're going to jump right in. Our first item is a report. I think, Kip, you're going to lead this discussion, and it's our quarterly report on our infrastructure strategy.
Thank you, Council Member, and I'm going to turn it directly over to Erica Garofo, who will give us a brief report.
Okay, good afternoon, committee members, chair, and members of the public. Erica Garofo, lead resilience strategist in the city manager's office. As a reminder, the city infrastructure strategy focuses on 5 objectives: disaster ready and climate smart, transportation and aviation, clean energy resilience, water resilience, and natural environment restoration. 16 work streams align with these objectives and represent the most impactful change initiatives underway. These are represented by the colored boxes on the slide. This is in addition to the daily service delivery of core services. Each quarter, the workstream leads and the respective departments develop their committed key results for each initiative within the city infrastructure strategy. At the end of the quarter, we evaluate each workstream on the completion of their planned key results and assign an overall rating of green, yellow, or red. Green means that the workstream is solidly on track with no course corrections required. Yellow means that the workstream is largely on track, but requires minor course correction or problem solving. And red means that the workstream is off track or has experienced a significant shift off baseline during the last quarter. Staff uses these scores as part of execution as learning and these ratings to identify where teams need additional support or a change in direction to be successful. I'm happy to report that Q3 had a much higher distribution of greens than in Q2. The full list of scored Q3 key results organized by workstream is in the memo, and the in-process Q4 key results are also listed in the memo. So today, I wanted to first share some detail on the one red workstream and then give you some highlights of the work that was accomplished in Q3. Okay, so the one red workstream was the BART Silicon Valley extension, and it was given a red status because 3 of the 4 key results were not started. Those key results were the first, which was completed, was coordinating with VTA on the 3D spatial GIS model of the project tunnel to provide tunnel protection zone information to inform the building permit processes. That one was completed. Unfortunately, the next 3, which I won't read, but you can read them on the screen, were not completed. And the reason why they were not completed was because VTA did not submit the design packages by the deadline, so the city could not complete these key results. VTA was negotiating with their contractor before the West Portal early works construction could begin while shifting resources to advance station design. The city continues to coordinate regularly and assist VTA in advancing their designs and permits with construction underway in May of 2024. Okay, moving on to our Q3 significant accomplishments. There were 37 key results that were completed in Q3, so I just wanted to share a handful of these and recognize staff's accomplishments across a wide range of infrastructure-related initiatives. So the first, which is in our disaster ready and climate smart objective, was to, we relocated the new Emergency Operations Center to their new location on Center Road, which, by the way, if you haven't seen it, it's beautiful. The second significant accomplishment is under the seismically safe soft story apartments workstream. We updated the Community and Economic Development Committee on the proposed implementation program. Under the Climate Smart Decarbonization and Mitigation workstream, we finalized the project roadmap for the Climate Smart San Jose Plan update. Moving over to transportation and aviation, Under the San Jose Airport New Terminal, we broke ground on the new police hangar, air support unit, hangar project. Under vehicle blight, we completed the San Jose 311 vehicle concerns backend system and app development and launched the new service. You'll be hearing more about that today. Under the Diridon Station Airport Connector, we presented the integrated team organization, an ongoing station alternative, and key components development to the Joint Policy Advisory Board. You'll also be hearing more about that today. Under EV fleet and charging infrastructure, under our clean energy objective, we complied with the Advanced Clean Fleets regulation for over 400 vehicles submitted for fleet procurement. Jumping over to water, under our municipal regional permit, stormwater, we coordinated citywide efforts to satisfy the stormwater permit compliance requirements and resubmitted the city's direct discharge plan. Under water supply, we negotiated a cost-sharing agreement with Valley Water to fund a city purified water team. And then lastly, under our community forest work stream, we planted 300 trees, which brings our total for the year to 2,200 total trees. We will return to the T&E committee in August with our next update. At that time, we'll also be presenting a refreshed portfolio of priority work streams for the FY 24-25 city infrastructure strategy based on the adopted budget. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you so much for the report. We're going to start with public comment. Before we begin this public comment, I'm going to remind committee members and members of the public to follow our code of conduct. This includes commenting on the specific agenda item only and addressing only the full body. Public speakers will not engage in a conversation with the council members, board, or members of staff. All members of the committee and public are expected to refrain from abusive language. Failure to comply with the code of conduct, which will disturb, disrupt, or impede the orderly conduct of this meeting, will result in removal from the meeting. Do we have any public comment on this item?
We do. Blair, please make your way to the podium. You will have 2 minutes to speak.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Happy Monday, happy June. I don't know where to start. A lot of nice items today. Hopefully I can have some good public comment on them. As we don't have Zoom anymore, thanks for allowing me public comment time here at this time. To sound like a geek, I'm into the ideas of emergency preparedness services with your infrastructure things. You've created a new emergency center that is going to be an important part of San Jose future that I hope can be an open center, an accountable center. Ray Ridden has very nicely offered to create meeting spaces for the center to see how it can operate for government officials. Good luck how that can be an open process with the community as well. It takes a lot to learn how to do that. Good luck in those efforts. I wanted to quickly mention, I guess, stormwater issues as a good luck with the stormwater issues. You seem to have a important responsibility. You want to be building the future of stormwater as clean water issues. That has been an issue for like over 10 years, longer than I've been here in San Jose. So good luck in efforts how you're going to address state and federal agencies and the upcoming public meeting. But it's from that I hope you can really take to heart the human rights, the local rights that the water department and others of the community are going to be expressing at that meeting, that can be clear how to balance the issue and how to work towards both issues. Good luck how we all do that together. I can't say enough about how emergency services can help with organizing all your city departments really well and really in decent terms. Thanks.
There is no other public comment.
All right, thank you. Do we have any comments from the members of the committee? A motion to accept the report?
Can I just ask a question?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Councilmember Davis.
Thanks, Erica, for your report. I know you went through why there was a red light on BART. Can you talk a little bit more about the yellow light ones, the electric vehicle charging infrastructure, fleet and charging infrastructure, shoreline levee, and Coyote Valley.
Yes, and if
I looked in the memo and I saw that there's just, it says what's in progress instead of being complete, but there's got to be kind of a story behind.
Yeah, if I could get the slides back up so I can tab back to that one. And of course, I printed my notes in black and white, so. So I think generally the ones that are yellow because, thank you, are because we mostly completed stuff, but there was maybe 1 or 2 work streams that were incomplete, or sorry, 1 or 2 key results that were not quite complete. And if we have anybody from those departments who can come down to answer about them, I could invite them now. Otherwise, I can get back to you
It's
with the
okay, yeah, we
details.
can take it offline. I just,
Yeah.
minor delay versus course correction are 2 different things in my mind.
Yeah.
And so I was just wondering if they're sort of minor delay, but they'll be likely green next quarter, or if we're talking about course correction, which is in a different direction.
Can you go through the ones that you mentioned again, Councilmember, now that I have them up?
The shoreline the yellow ones, shoreline levee, electric vehicle, fleet charging infrastructure, and then Coyote Valley.
Yeah, we'll hear more on the shoreline levee from Kevin Ice at the end of this meeting, so you'll get that answered in detail.
Okay.
On the electric vehicle fleet charging, I have a high degree of confidence that those are moving forward and those are high priority. That isn't a change in direction. And then on the Protect Coyote Valley open space, I think this is actually some of the ongoing planning stuff that didn't happen in the time frame that it was supposed to, but not a change in direction.
Okay, do you have a sense on the Coyote Valley? I think there was an assessment that wasn't done. Let's see.
Yeah, I do not have the details
It's
on it, and I'm not seeing anyone from planning.
The baseline assessment and completion of land use and economic report is in progress.
Right.
And that's been in progress for quite some time, so
Okay. That's a helpful one. We'll double check on that and see whether that's been delayed again and again, and then get back with you.
thank you.
Okay. And we'll follow up to confirm my answers to the others and get back with you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Davis, you want to make a motion to accept the report?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion and second, so let's move on to vote on this one. All right, the item carries 5-0. All right, John, come on down. We're going to start with our Vehicle Concerns Program Status Report.
Good afternoon, Chair Cohen, committee members, and members of the public. My name is Khaled Tawfiq, Chief Information Officer, and presenting with me is John Risto, Director of the Department of Transportation, Ariane Cohen, Division Manager at Department of Transportation, and Namrata Batra Agrawal, Project and Product Manager from Information Technology Department. This is our third status update regarding this project, and we are reporting this during the last in December. We launched the San Jose 311 Vehicle Concerns Application enhancements in March of this year. Today's presentation will cover the status of the Vehicle Blight project, the status of customer satisfaction progress, and planned enhancements to this program this year. I'll turn it over to John to continue the presentation.
Thank you, Khaled. Since the inception of San Jose 311, abandoned vehicles has been one of the most requested services on that site. Over the last several years, however, abandoned vehicle concerns have evolved and expanded, becoming more complex and requiring a multi-departmental approach. The Beautify San Jose Vehicle Blight Initiative project team included representatives from Information Technology, Transportation, Parks, Recreation, Neighborhood Services, the Police Department, our Housing Department, Planning, Building, Code Enforcement, and the City Manager's Office. Under the sponsorship of the City Manager's Office, the Information Technology Department and Department of Transportation launched a multi-department team to collaborate on reimagining the response and determining resolution and tracking of vehicle complaints for higher effectiveness and resident satisfaction. Today, staff will present an update on the launch of the redesigned vehicle concern service which went live on March 28 of this year. Could I get the next slide? As shown in the graph seen here, the upward trend in customer satisfaction through March of 2024 has continued in part due to operational and program enhancements which we included in the expansion of the extended parking stay enforcement pilot program in August of 23. Future report outs will continue to include customer service data across all vehicle concern service deliveries. And now I'd like to hand it off to Namrata to continue the presentation. Namrata.
Thank you, John. The timeline on this slide presents a series of project milestones from October 22 to March 2024. Major milestones included engaging in human-centered design process to ensure internal and external customers remained the focus point during the redesign. Piloted new services, including bio-waste collection and disposal, as well as extended parking stay enforcement. Made iterative improvements to communications, multiple status reports to T&E, build out of the redesigned SJ311 and supporting workflow systems, culminating with the go live of phase 1 on March 28, 2024. Next slide, please. Previously, all vehicle-related issues reported through SJ311 under vehicle abatement were directly integrated into DOT work streams and manually triaged. With the launch of the Vehicle Concerns Service, the system now automatically triages and routes service requests to the appropriate city departments. This means that the customers no longer need to understand city processes and department operations to receive services. The project team dedicated many hours to designing this new intake form, ensuring it captures the minimum amount of information required by the various service teams to make the report actionable. Staff acknowledges the feedback concerning the number of steps required to submit a request. We will continue to evaluate and refine this process to enhance efficiency and user experience. On the current slide, you see that the community uses the SJ311 application to report vehicle-related concerns. The service request goes to the triage hub, and the hub triages and routes the request to the appropriate city team. The city team investigates the request and sends updates back to the triage hub. Based on user-provided information, during the submission process, the triage engine checks for duplicate cases. If an open case already exists for a specific license plate number at the same location, the user can follow the existing case and receive updates, saving time and preventing duplicates for the investigating team. To increase operational efficiency, the system identifies previously investigated vehicles that complied with warning notices and resulted in no enforcement action. These are then deprioritized, and further investigations on that vehicle are paused for 60 days. Once submitted, the new triage engine checks the license plate against the stolen vehicle list and automatically routes matches to PD. In addition to enabling teams to seamlessly transfer requests among departments, the hub also fosters transparency and facilitates end-to-end tracking of each report. Since the launch of the new Vehicle Concerns Service, over 5,000 submissions have been made in the last 45 days. Of these, 73% have been routed to the DOT for issues like vehicle abatement, extended parking, and illegal parking. Additionally, Housing and the Customer Contact Center each received approximately 600 requests. Of the roughly 3,700 requests received by DOT, 60% pertain to extended parking stay enforcement. These reports involve vehicles that haven't moved for an extended period, but lack physical issues like broken windows or discharged airbags, which would typically require traditional vehicle abatement services. The EPS program aiming to close cases within 21 days, is experiencing a surge in cases that will exceed the parking compliance unit's capacity of 10,000 cases per year. As EPS cases continue to grow, a backlog will develop, leading to delays beyond the 21-day goal. Moreover, this increased workload typically results in vehicles relocating, often within the same area, with limited citation or tow enforcement resulting as an outcome. Of the 43 requests triaged to Beautify SJ, most involved reports of trash around vehicles. SJPD received 92 requests, 14 for stolen vehicles, 58 for suspected narcotics activity, and 20 for suspected prostitution activity. I'm going to hand it off to Arian next to continue.
Thank you, Namrata. This slide highlights some of the service enhancements and enforcement outcomes that have been realized since the launch of the new system and intake of over 5,000 vehicle concern service requests. As of May 15th, the teams had investigated and closed 3,078, or 60% of the reported cases. I'd like to emphasize some of the advantages of the triage system experienced by customers contributing to the enhancement of overall city processes. We have avoided duplicate service requests 401 times, saving valuable time for both customers and staff. Additionally, 408 service requests were reassigned to the correct DOT work group or city department due to initial misreporting. 4 service requests required multi-departmental responses, and the triage engine flagged 14 vehicles as stolen. In the first 45 days of parking enforcement, 128 vehicles were towed and 74 citations were issued. Vehicles reported under vehicle abatement were towed 14% of the time, compared to just 1% for those under the extended parking stay program. Next slide. Soon after the launch of the new service, the council office staff was trained in accessing the back end of SJ311 application to better equip them to answer constituent inquiries. System access allows staff to view the status of a vehicle concerns report, including details of the service request and the outcomes of the investigation. This slide highlights a case where an RV was reported and upon follow-up investigation had complied by leaving the area. Next slide. On the SJ311 front end, customers can enter a ticket number on the Other Reports page to search for details of any service request. The summary screen displays the status of a request, details of the reported vehicle, submission date, and staff comments. It also includes investigation outcomes, such as before and after investigation photos, providing a high level of transparency and enhancing customer satisfaction. I'll now hand it back to Namrata.
Thank you, Arian. The additional data collected by the new SJ311 vehicle concerns will enhance our dashboard and reporting capabilities. The prototype customer satisfaction dashboard presented illustrates these advancements. Staff's analytical efforts and review of customer satisfaction data revealed the need to re-evaluate our assessment approach. A new survey method has been implemented to gather more actionable feedback focused on outcomes, timeliness, and communication. The new approach disaggregates scores based on the complexity of the required response, distinguishing between single department and multi-department responses. This aims to provide a more nuanced understanding of customer satisfaction and improve responsiveness. Please note that as we transition to the new customer satisfaction dashboard, the current dashboard is no longer being updated. Next slide, please. Since the vehicle concerns project initiation in fall 2022, involving over 24 city staff members, there have been several key accomplishments. Here are a few highlights. First is the redesign, development, and launch of the new vehicle concerns service and central triage engine with improved communication based on the city's customer service standards. The new system allows for expanded and less restrictive customer reporting options, including phone intake via the customer contact center. DOT continues to use data collected to refine proactive parking enforcement staffing and routing. Additionally, the extended parking stay pilot has worked over 2,000 cases in the initial 45 days. Transitioning to policy-related efforts, the recently enacted oversized and overnight parking restrictions ordinances granting tow authority will undergo a pilot phase at 3 schools starting in July. Additionally, continued efforts with the state legislature to identify opportunities to update the California Vehicle Code to address the enforcement challenges faced by cities today. Finally, to keep city employees safe and to give them tools needed to be successful, training and mental health events, and recognizing interacting with individuals with mental health conditions. I'm going to hand it off to Khalid now.
Thank you, Nimrata. As stated, we have released a major enhancement to San Jose 311 and the vehicle concerns application back in March of this year. Since then, we made some enhancements to the communication and email guided by some feedback from the city manager's office. We updated the communication and the vehicle concerns in May of this year. We're providing the status report this month, today and during this meeting. The next 2 steps will be to launch the dashboard that kind of emphasize the changes that we made and capture the data and present it in a different way, more advanced, so we can track some of the elements that allow us to look into further enhancements. Our next status update is going to be in December of this year, and we're looking to release a new update to San Jose 311 by April of next year. We realize that the progress that we made to date, but we also understand that our work is not done. We will continue to look at opportunities to make enhancements, whether it's in process or the application, guided by the feedback from community council and the dashboard and the data we collect. And I'd like to thank all the departments that have participated in this program and continue to help us enhance and improve the services we provide. This concludes our presentation, and staff is available for questions.
Thank you so much for the thorough presentation. Do we have any cards for public comment?
Yes, we have 3 requests to speak. When I call your name, please make your way down to the podium, and you will have 2 minutes to speak. Jordan, Diane, and Blair, please.
Good afternoon. My name's Diane Solomon, and I'm here on behalf of your city's Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, BPAC. Our mission is to help you improve bicyclist and pedestrian safety based upon our experience in our city. A concern our committee members continue to have is the danger caused by vehicles that are illegally parked in bicycle lanes and vehicles that are abandoned on our city streets. With respect to the abandoned vehicles and vehicle blight, our California state law now allows video enforcement, and it's our understanding that VTA is currently using automated video technology on some of its vehicles. Might you find a way for our city to fund and employ this technology so our city's fleets can ticket abandoned cars and cars parked inappropriately in the bicycle lanes? Automating even a portion of the ticketing would increase parking enforcement without having to increase the number of our city's traffic enforcement officers. Thank you, and thank you for making San Jose a great place to live.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Jordan Moldow, District 3. Thanks for releasing the vehicle concerns feature. I'm glad that the city is recognizing and prioritizing the negative impact that vehicles can have on the residents of our city when they're parked or operated incorrectly. I do request that the user experience, especially when it comes to pedestrians and bicyclists, receive some improvement. Myself and some other bicyclists have been trying to use the Vehicle Concerns app to report illegally parked vehicles in bike lanes and on sidewalks, and it's very difficult to use. It can take about 3 or 4 minutes to file a single request, because you have to go through like 7 or 8 screens, and there's about a dozen required questions and some other usability issues. In addition, there's some required questions that theoretically shouldn't be required since you're already uploading a picture of the vehicle, so you shouldn't have to fill out like the color and the make of the vehicle, which some people can have difficulty figuring out, especially if you are red-green colorblind or have some other visual impairment. And then there's some other difficulties that I laid out in an email that I sent to you all this morning. The other thing relating to bicyclists is right now when you fill out the illegal parking ticket, it gets auto-closed and you are given a message at the end that says we can't do real-time responses to illegal parking because we're not staffed to that. I understand that staffing is an issue, but if we're just going to be collecting data for building up heat maps, it should be a much shorter experience. 2 or 4 required questions is really all that's necessary. And hopefully we could figure out some prioritizing for responding at least to long-term parking and bike lane.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Thanks for this item. We're about 18 months into the new mayoral administration here in San Jose. I think we've been learning the rules of the road, how you guys want to work, and the future of tech is an important part of that. And I hope there's been a good transition from the previous mayor to this mayor about what the previous mayor was trying to develop, good practices of tech and accountability, and that we're doing, good work, and not only with the public safety needs, but in the civil protection needs as well, with the technology involved. So there were some good comments today by people in how to want to better address our parking issues and our abandoned vehicle issues that is using technology that you're talking about. A real good luck to involve accountability practices, to want to for the process to be an open public process and for public policies to be available for people to simply ask about if they want to. People shouldn't have to fear asking about these sort of technology issues. You're dealing the same with current RV issues, and you have a good human rights agenda to how to practice that, and yet you brought in a new realm of technology. Data collection is a part of that process that I hope also can have good practices of accountability that people can ask about, and you can create trusting relationships and honest relationships about what you're doing. And that's all. And that's so key to how we build our future. We work on those things, and guess what? We're being innovative by just being honest with ourselves. And so really good luck to do that and to have those conversations with each other, good open public policies, and with this project, good luck to yourselves. Thank you.
Back to the committee.
Okay, I don't see any hands raised yet, so I'm going to start with a question. I heard mention of tow authority for oversized vehicles as part of some of the new work that we're doing. We're in the process now of renegotiating our tow contracts so that we, will this be part of that negotiation?
Yeah, the contract was awarded, and we're currently helping a couple of departments to implement the system. So it's in the progress.
Is there a model for how these companies would tow oversized vehicles that are when it's necessary? I mean, obviously we try not to do it, especially if it's lived in, but there are cases where we will have to. How does that get done? How is that paid for when we have to tow a lived-in vehicle or an abandoned RV?
We don't have this information available, but we'll get back to you with some details.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Candelas?
No, thank you. And I appreciate that question, Councilmember. I did want to ask, when I see based on slide 7, we close out about, or from the March 28th to the May 15th date, we closed out about 3,000 tickets, if you will. The majority of those tickets, from my understanding, are related to us going out there and or doing some kind of investigation, whether it's visual or other, correct? Or maybe you can shed a little bit of light into what those 3,000 closed ticket requests amount to.
Yeah, those would be cases that were investigated out in the field, so they're marked and tagged. If they happen to be, the vehicle is still present when they go, oftentimes upon the first visit, those vehicles have already relocated, moved, or are not found, so they're just closed at that point.
Got it. No, and I figured because I get a lot of residents reach out and say, you know, I got an automated response saying we returned to the location described and did not find the vehicle there. Your request has been closed, and now for 60 days, they cannot make a request or a report on this specific vehicle at the specific spot. And so now I'm curious to hear if that's not the case. Great, then I can report back. But that's from what I've heard. Our pathway forward specifically on vehicles, not necessarily oversized, but vehicles in say neighborhoods or just the public right of way.
So you're specifically asking about the 60-day pause of reinvestigation for vehicles?
Correct.
Yeah, that's just due to the fact that we don't have the resources required to investigate what's going to amount to probably 30 to 40,000 at the end of a year, cases that are vehicles parked for an extended period of time that don't meet other qualifiers and aren't abandoned, so that they're just moving and people report them as being in a location too long or in a place that they theoretically shouldn't park. And then upon that investigation, they've already left for the day, gone to work, or moved down the block.
Got it. And I understand just sheer capacity of what we're able to accomplish, but now, if the public perception is that we were non-responsive and we just went out there and said, oh, they're gone, and now you're stuck for 60 days because maybe you couldn't find, or maybe the description of the location isn't necessarily there. It forces my office to come in and say, hey, well, I have a picture, the vehicle's there, maybe the description that they put or the geotag of where the location was not fully there, and now they're stuck for 60 days until I have to come in and say, well, let me check with DOT, and then you get my subsequent emails, which happens fairly often. Sorry about that. But so I'm curious to see your response if we're thinking about maybe a process improvement with regards to that, because I know there was our ability to reopen certain cases as part of this update, correct? But this is not part of that?
I can take that. It's not been deployed yet. We are actively working on deploying a pilot for reopening service requests. We are hoping to have something in the next couple of months for the reopening pilot, reopening service requests.
All right, no worries. No, and I appreciate that. I just, this is just something that I've heard, and so I felt the need. I mean, we're from where we were with approval being so dismal to where we are now. It's great work on your behalf, and so I appreciate the effort, and I know our residents do, based on even on the anecdotal responses at the bottom of the presentation. Nice touch, by the way. And so to follow up on my colleague's question on the towing of oversized vehicles, and we're in the process of negotiating the contracts or executing the contracts that we have with the tow companies, correct? And so I'm curious if the storage of those RVs, that's factored into the contract, and/or what if somebody doesn't reclaim their RV, if you will? What happens after 60 days, 90 days, etc.? Who bears the cost of storage, essentially?
We'll get back to you with a response on that one. Don't know that on the top of my head.
Okay, all right, no worries. I can't wait to see the response. I appreciate that. And with that, I'll move acceptance of the staff report.
Okay, Councilmember Davis.
Thank you. I'll kind of following on Councilmember Candelas's questions. We also have a case in our district. It's actually not a vehicle. It's a trailer. It's like a food truck. And it's in a residential neighborhood, so like a food truck, but just the trailer part. And it's parked in front of a home. It was reported by another neighbor in a different location on the street, and now that has been closed for 60 days, and now this person, they've moved in front of a different house, and this person tried to report it, and they were told, it's closed for 60 days, you can't report it. I'm a little curious if this counts as an oversized vehicle, because it's in a different location, if there's any recourse. It's not like just a car, right? It's a large vehicle. or trailer?
Yeah, I mean, a trailer is a vehicle, so it has to adhere to the same parking regulations that all the vehicles would. If there's no other parking restrictions in the area, we could investigate it under the extended parking stay. So if it's parking in a certain place for a duration of time, then we could investigate it under that. So that's an enhancement of this. But we often find that they just comply with those notifications and then move. So there's no unfortunate silver bullet to address that type of a vehicle parked on a public street.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about, and I want to thank Diane and Jordan for their comments, and about the possibility of doing an automated enforcement and giving tickets that way, as opposed to having to increase the size of staff. I mean, I think you got in less than 3 months, you got half the intended amount, right, of requests for the entire year. So I think we all know that this is an issue, and clearly for how many departments are involved in this and how much you hear from our offices, vehicles being parked where they're not supposed to be parked for longer than our ordinance used to say they should be parked is definitely an issue. So is there something like automated enforcement that we can do differently?
Yeah, Councilmember John Ristiff, I'll start, and if anyone has any more detail. Yeah, we are aware of that, that there are agencies, I'm not sure in the state, but I'll look into that, but that have been using it. I'm not sure how effective it is. It's relatively new in terms of issuing citations via a vehicle like that. So we're definitely going to look into it. As you know, we do want to do as much technology assistance to the current practice as possible. This is fairly new, and we just haven't had much time to actually look into what the legal requirements of that might be, the functional, how we would do it, what types of vehicles. We've heard that it's been done with transit vehicles in some areas, and that may or may not be effective for us. I think what we're talking about here is just the ability to react fast enough to vehicles that might be blocking bike lanes. You're usually there for a temporary period of time, as opposed to some of the things we're working on here with literally parked vehicles that are there for days or weeks or months. The ones that are blocking bike lanes or those kind of things are generally there for a shorter period of time, and we just don't have the capacity to get out there on the time frames needed to cite those kind of vehicles. However, we do get some cited, but not enough to actually make a difference yet.
Yeah, I think they're two separate issues from my perspective. The automated enforcement could be used more broadly, not only for bike lanes. The fact that we don't have sort of a rapid deployment for people parking in bike lanes. If we had sort of a blitz of tickets in spots where people are tending to park in bike lanes pretty regularly, Park Avenue would be one of those. I think you would have fewer problems with that, right? Because word gets around pretty quickly, and my guess is the people who are parking in bike lanes tend to be repeat offenders. They think it's a special spot. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Foley.
Thank you. I'm very mindful to Diane and Jordan's comments about illegally parked vehicles in the bike lanes. We've heard from them actually the last few months, and since they've been coming to the council meetings and to Vision Zero and other meetings that I've attended, I've really noticed how many people do illegally park in the bike lanes. And to Jordan's point, it's not that easy or quick to report a car that is parked illegally in a bike lane. I'm driving by on Bird Avenue, where there's a lot of narrow streets as it is, but cars are parked in the bike lane. And I'd love to just take a picture, send it over on the 311 app, and have that be it. Because for me to open up the app, enter my password and everything that I need to do, by the time I've completed all that just to be able to enter my information. It's probably 5-7 minutes, and I've lost interest, or I've moved so far away from it that I can no longer be effective in reporting the car that is blocked. So I really like the idea of picking a street, a pilot program of picking a street and just writing tickets of those people who are legally parked, because I'll bet you that they don't come back there and park illegally for a while once they're given a ticket. So I'm wondering how we might be able to, if not have automated enforcement, have a targeted enforcement at some point, just targeting various streets throughout the city to, as a deterrent, because it's a huge problem. We're trying to get people out of their vehicles, but if they're not feeling safe because the bike lane isn't open to them, they're not going to get out of their vehicles, and we're not benefiting the environment and the community around us if we're not getting them out of their vehicles. So just any way we can to create the enforcement level mechanism, whether it's automated, whether it's low-tech, walking down the street and handing out tickets, whatever it is. But the other point is to make it easier, less steps, take a picture of the license plate and send it off would be an easy thing for us to do. If there's a way to do it simpler, I'm wondering how hard it would be to come up with new ways to have that involved in the 311 app, so you don't have to take 5 or 10 minutes to do it.
Thank you, Councilmember Foley. Excuse me. I think currently the process, they can call 311 directly and report it, especially if they're driving. So that's probably one of the easiest way. We are looking at other options where they can report things in an easier manner. Some of the things that we're looking at is changing the front end of 311 to make it more user-friendly and not require people to create accounts and things of that nature. So that's some of the things we're working on for in the next 12 months and should be part of the status update in December when we come back.
Okay, so when you come back, you'll come back with some new innovative...
Hopefully some answers or maybe some solution. We'll see.
Okay, great. And then, thank you, I appreciate that. And so I've heard the reference to 60 days many times. Why is 60 days a magical number? Is that our ordinance?
Honestly, I'm not aware of where the number, I'm fairly new to the unit in the role that I'm in, so I can't tell you exactly where the 60-day number came from. It's based upon the resources that we have and to be able to spread those people out to respond to the large number of cases that we've got across the city. So I don't know that there was any magic behind it.
Yeah, I think we just needed to identify a number that we could start this program, see how well we're doing with responding to you can see there's quite a few still requests that we're having to respond to. I think the intent is actually to get this started, implement it, see how we work out all the bugs, and as Namrata said, we're still working out some of those. And then we can revisit that number without any way that, we were going to be able to respond to every one of these requests at that sort of level. So it was a selected number with not a lot of information behind it until we get the information then to be able to make decisions on it.
So is there an ability to track those individuals who have reported, the vehicle's been there, been towed, now there's a 60-day wait period. So is there a way that we can track the number of people who are contacting us within that 60-day window so we know whether the 60-day is a good number or too long of a number? Do we need to reduce the number to 45 days, to 30 days? If we could collect that data, that might be helpful. Is there a way we can do that?
Yeah, definitely we can look into it. I think we have most of the data and we'll do some analysis to see. I think this is part of what John was saying. We're going to look at it once we have enough data that we collect, and then we see if there's a better number of days that we should consider.
Okay, so we might be able to say to our residents, within 60 days, we've already towed them or we've already moved them along, that's great, but at least what we're collecting the data. So your information is really important. So please continue to report it so that at some point that will modify how we look at things and change how we may respond to these situations.
Yeah,
Is
yes,
that fair?
yes, the answer is yeah, we'll look at it. We're roughly 60 days into this implementation, so I
Okay.
think we may start to see some of that. And then I'm sure IT can, and all of us can start to track those numbers if we aren't now. We're about 60 days in, so we'll see how that
Great.
how the cycle starts to work, though.
I appreciate that. I have to say that this is one of the issues that we get a lot of calls on all of our council offices about cars that are parked in front of their house that haven't moved for 6 months, or why is this vehicle, it looks like a work vehicle, why is it not being towed? You know, so you're getting a lot of questions because we get a lot of questions, and we need to be prepared with the responses when they come in. So thank you very much for the information and for the reporting on a 60-day program that I'm sure we'll hear in a year or so, all this other data that we've asked about. So thank you.
Thank you, and I want to thank my colleagues for the thoughtful questions. This is always a topic that elicits a lot of conversation, has a lot of interest in the public. And so I'm excited that we've even made as much progress we've made. We have a tool now that's far easier to use than it was before. It sounds like it's more effective, has better satisfaction levels. Obviously, there's still some kinks to work out. And on that question of multiple reports of the same vehicle, I also understand the need and why we've put in this moratorium, because we often have people who say, well, I don't like the fact that you've determined that the vehicle can still stay because it doesn't violate certain norms. Yes, it's been there a long time and the resident might not want it there, but that was part of the problem, is that we would have people reporting the same vehicle dozens and dozens of times, and we want to try to prevent that. So I appreciate this balance we're trying to strike. You're doing the value. There's an investigation that happens. It's closed. The vehicle's either not where we thought it was going to be, or we determined really that the vehicle meets our guidelines, and we're not going to take further action, and that's not always satisfactory to the person making the report. And we don't necessarily want to flood ourselves with repeat reports of the same vehicles over and over again if that's the determination. I think I heard you say, Namrata, that there is looking into doing sort of an appeal style process, if you will. If somebody says, well, no, maybe I reported it wrong, the vehicle really is here, there will be a way. So maybe there's an in-between on that. Is that correct?
Yes, we are going to be implementing a way for residents to reopen a request once. So if it's closed and they're dissatisfied, they can reopen it just once.
That'll probably be a good balance between the people who report things over and over again, but still the ability to go back and say maybe this wasn't the proper disposition.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there's no further questions, I think we're ready to vote on this item. Okay, that one motion carries 5-0. So we're on to our third item, the Community Forest Management and Urban Forestry Report. I think, John, you're going to stay for this one.
Thank you, Chairman Cohen. John Risto, Director of Transportation and Transitioning from Cars to Trees. We've got an update on our Community Forest Management Plan and Urban Forestry Annual Report. And joining me here at the dais is Rick Scott, the Assistant Director, Department of Transportation, Sarah Davis, our City Forester, and John Tu, Division Manager, Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement. So I'm going to turn it over to...
I'll take it.
Oh, there you are. Good. To Rick.
All right, good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Rick Scott, as John said, Assistant Director, DOT. Let me get to the slide. So today, we do an annual report on our recently adopted Community Forest Management Plan. Our goal today will be to give you an update on the implementation of our strategic work plan, go over some of the open items that we're still working through, and lay out for you what our work plan is for the next year. So just a little bit of background. In 2022, we had our first ever adopted community forest management plan. Prior to that, we really had an enforcement-only type model with very limited staff, a completely different strategic direction than what we came up with after the adoption of this plan. We added staff in both DOT and PRNS to adjust to what was pretty clearly an emerging, growing need for the city. Budget process after the CFMP adoption led to an established 12-year pruning cycle for city-owned trees. And we got funding in a general fund to plant an additional 1,000 trees per year. And DOT and its partners through other sources are finding the funding for another 1,000 plus. As you saw in the very first presentation, this year we're over about 2,500 at this time. Right around this time, there was also an audit conducted and presented to the council in 2023, really on the mitigation fees that we get when developers do a project and have to move trees, but it really timed well with our CFMP and it very much aligned with the strategic work plan. So first, highlight our accomplishments, and even since this slide has been completed, that we planted more trees between PRNS and DOT. Around 2,500 trees were planted in San Jose. 880 trees are parks or adjacent to the parks with DOT funding, so that's the collaboration I was talking about. Both DOT and PRNS were awarded a substantial grant from the USDA Forest Service, $5.6 million for DOT, which we'll explain in subsequent slides, and $1 million for PRNS. So this is the biggest grant we've ever received for forestry in San Jose. 2 staff members were accepted in the prestigious Municipal Forestry Institute. We've completed more than 1,000 requested inspections and built relationships with partner agencies. I also want to add that both PRNS and DOT staff significantly responded to the storms this past year and did a tremendous job making sure that our residents were safe. So one of the first strategic work plan goals that came out of the CFMP was streamlining the governance, and the recommendation that came from the consultant was really to consolidate tree responsibilities to one division. We kind of didn't necessarily think that was the correct way to go, but we're still evaluating it. What's really happened and emerged over the past year and a half is instead of the consolidation, we've seen capacity growth across the entire city, so PBC, PRNS, DOT, as well as increased cooperation that's really accomplished a lot of the goals. So, not even as a work plan goes on, maybe the goals change. And I think by developing the collaboration and the cooperation, we've accomplished a lot of what that goal was. We've also integrated our forestry team into the beginning of the design planning process, and now our DOT staff participate and assist PBCE with live tree removals and are much more engaged in the PBCE level forestry activities. Additionally, one of the goals is to ensure urban forestry sustainability, so we've got a significantly expanded staff of assistant arborists who are certified and trained to pick the right tree for the right place, planning for future climate. And something that, again, my colleague Sarah will be talking about here in a second, is the expansion of what we expect to see a significant expansion of our tree canopy with this federal grant, in addition to our expanded tree planting activities over the past few years. And so this tied into the in lieu fees audit report that came out right around the same time. And during COVID, some of you actually weren't on this committee at the time, but we essentially had one path to plant trees, and there were a lot of challenges associated with that. There were construction delays, it was a shelter-in-place order, and ultimately supply chain issues and vendor issues that kind of caused some significant challenges. So that was correctly called out in the audit as an area where we needed to improve. And we just want to point out that over the past basically 18 months, DOT has spent or obligated $1.27 million in mitigation fees. It's a constantly refilling bucket as more developments come in. The bucket is replenished, but we are planting a substantial amount of trees, and why we say spent obligated is because we set aside the funding to maintain and water trees once they're planted. So we want to make sure those trees survive once we actually do the activity. So again, continuously improving on the expansion of the canopy and the expenditures of our fees. That's a thing we're going to be highlighting when we come back with an audit update later in the year. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to the City Forester, Sarah Davis.
Hi, thank you, council members. So I'm going to go through the rest of the recommendations from the audit. So starting with some more efficiencies around keeping our trees. So forestry can be a very data-driven field. So as part of our federal grant, we have the funding to inventory about 1/3 of the street trees in the city. So that will be a great help so we can interact with our data in real time and track our trees. Yes, please. Go back. Sorry. So since the CFMP was adopted, PBCE has adopted new design guidelines. So we're not setting aside our own standards, we're utilizing planning's standards. So outreach was a big theme in the recommendations from the auditor's office. We've been able to secure funding for a partnership with the Western chapter of the International Society of Arboriculture and CAL FIRE. They are able to pass through federal money. So we're going to design and kick off a public awareness campaign primarily around the act of topping trees. That's part of the reason our canopy doesn't grow, is because a lot of people remove half of the tree's canopy every year, over and over. So we want to try to put an end to that. Next slide. All right. So in terms of making sure that we're meeting the needs of our diverse city, a part of that is through that IRA grant. So if you look at the map, I'm sure you read this in the briefing from last month, the neighborhoods, well, the census tracts that are shaded in gray, those are all areas that the federal government has deemed as disadvantaged as part of the White House's Justice 40 program. Excuse me. So we want to focus a lot of work in those areas anyway, so that's nice where that funding will help us support that as well. Okay, next. So what's the point of doing all this work if we can't sustainably keep the urban forest going on? So we look at each and every single site where a tree grows holistically. We're looking for the right tree in the right place for the right reason and in the right way. So that's kind of a mantra we all have beaten into our heads. So that's how we operate out there in the world. So we also want to increase our urban tree cover. As a part of that, we have funding in place, again, from the general fund and the grant and the mitigation fees. So we have resources to continue to plant trees. Again, in terms of climate adaptation, we are deep into the science and have partnerships with different agencies to look at how do we help trees that will grow in our future climate start growing here now. It's a resource that takes a while. If I plant a tree today, that doesn't mean necessarily that it's still going to be alive in 30 years. So we're trying to invest in what the future will look like. Okay, go back. Oh, okay, well, you can't go back. So, so back to the mitigation fees. I have laid out a nice map of where the mitigation fees are being generated from by council district. So if you recall, the direction was to use that mitigation money. Half of the money stays in the district where it came from, and the other half goes into a kitty or a pot, essentially, so that the neighborhoods that don't have a lot of development will still have access to projects with that funding. Yeah, we can't go back for some reason. Here we are. Actually, we can go back one more slide. You did it. Okay, anyways. So a part of standardization is around how we treat development it has to be a partnership between PBCE and DOT. And I think we did a great job figuring that out this year. So now development plans are being reviewed by the forestry group before it gets so far down the process to where the actual DOT review would happen. So we're able to get the trees in the right place and meet the design standards ahead of time. In the past, it was an afterthought. So plan sets would have the phrasing on it to don't worry about what kind of trees you need to plant. We'll do those later at the very end of the project. So now we're ahead of time so we can design the infrastructure so that that tree can actually grow and get larger. And we are following up with all of our developers in terms of what they're planting and to make sure that they're meeting our planting ratios. So if a tree comes out, how many are supposed to go back in? So we're trying to stay really true to that. Okay, now. All right, so it's not all sunshine and light. We have found an invasive pest here in town. We found it in November is when it was confirmed. It has the potential to possibly contribute to the death of about 15% of our public trees. What that means for private property trees is left to be unseen. So if we run the math on just the street trees, something like this could cause about almost $20 million that's going to be on the shoulders of the residents and the property owners. One example, we had one street tree that we found so far that it cost the property owner about $5,000 to remove. So it's not a surprise bill that you want to get in the mail, that's for sure. So we are out sampling. So we have these weird traps out there, and we have them placed in parks so we can delineate where the infestation is, how far has it spread, can we contain it? So we're trying to do as much of that data collection as we can so that when we go to the public and say, hey, we have this problem, we don't have to be as alarmist, and we could possibly contain our communication and outreach just to those smaller areas that have an infestation. Right now, it's mostly along Coyote Creek, and it's spilling out a little bit into the parks around where we're sampling. And our next big challenge is the tree care industry in our area. Clearly, the tree topping is not something we want to see, even if they are using an older technique called pollarding. They're not doing that right either. So part of this anti-topping will be addressed from that partnership we have with the CAL FIRE. So, our next steps. So, we will finish planting our 2,000 trees this year. I think we already have. We are going to deliver the first year of our IRA grant. That first year is around taking the time to procure things properly, as well as add 2 limited-term staff members to run the program for us. Again, we'll be updating about 1/3 of the city's tree inventory, and we're exploring different partnerships with different groups and how we can leverage each other's funding to keep those partnerships growing. Also, we want to get a little bit more into the data so we can really see what we're doing day to day. So I want to make sure that we have the right performance measures in place and that we're analyzing our work with the hard data. And then, lastly, as a complement to the work we're going to be doing with the grant, we are going to launch a free tree planting program for the rest of the city as well. So those mitigation dollars can go towards planting trees in the public right-of-way that benefits the citizens and so forth.
Thanks, Sarah. And with that, we're ready for any questions. One last comment. I want to acknowledge our partners in PRNS and PBCE who are all here. Again, it is a team effort, and I think the whole team citywide did a tremendous job in forestry this year. So with that said, we're ready for your questions.
Thank you. Really, really exciting report. I'm really gratified to see the progress we're making as a city on this issue. Do we have any members of the public to speak?
Yes, we have 2 requests to speak. Blair and Jordan, please make your way down to the podium. You will each have 2 minutes to speak.
Jordan Moldow, District 3. Thanks for the report. Trees are so important. They help with mental health. They reduce climate change impacts. They prevent soil erosion. They lower our temperatures. So really important work. Forestry team doing great work. Our city forest doing great work. It was great to see a bunch of new trees planted in my neighborhood on Earth Day and a bunch of new trees planted just this past Saturday at the State of the City. And I'm glad to hear that the team is working on having developments removing fewer trees. I think that's incredibly important. One thing that I didn't see in the presentation was sort of what is present day without that policy, how many net trees are we adding or removing each year? Because I think we talked about how many new ones are being planted, but how much of an effect is that actually when you subtract out all the ones that were removed? And I get email newsletters every week from the city of trees that have been requested to be removed, and sometimes it's really depressing. There's like dozens of trees just in a given week that developments want to remove. So thanks for working on that. Very wishful thinking on my part, but I wonder if there's any possibility whatsoever that in some cases, rather than cutting down mature trees, if they could be relocated somewhere else. It's probably expensive and a lot of work, but just putting the thought out there. And maybe developers can plan on, designing their developments around certain mature trees rather than grazing the land and just building in the middle. Finally, I mentioned our city forest, so they have a small plot of land near Guadalupe Gardens where they, have an amazing plot of land where they grow trees. There's currently a plan to take some plots in the Guadalupe Gardens and convert them to commercial on behalf of the FAA, and I wonder if there's any use in taking those plots instead and growing more trees on them instead.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Thanks for this item. This is an item that's been developing for a long time. There's been a lot of community input from the previous and work within the previous administration and District 3 Councilperson Carrasco. It was really important to her to develop tree canopy issues, and I'm still not fully understanding how to move forward with what that concept is for the east side. It's an incredibly important concept, but how we go about that, good luck how you will be addressing that. Do we simply plant redwood trees, big redwood trees and big shade trees, or is there a need for, to respect perhaps the indigenous nature of the east side and what that was about before the arrival of Spain in the 1700s? 1700s. So, whatever that needs to be, how to develop shade is incredibly important. So good luck in what you'll be doing to work towards that. I want to offer that because there was so much community good dialogue a few years ago on this subject, I feel, the relationship between government and community is very good now. And city government better understands what taking down a tree means. They were, at a time, cutting down trees kind of a little coldly. They had need, but there wasn't the community input that I think there can be now, and that needs to be. You have to address the community when you cut down a tree. You can't just whack it out yourself. So good luck in that sort of dialogue and process, and as an ongoing process of just community dialogue. Thanks a lot.
Back to the committee.
Thank you so much. We'll start with Councilmember Ortiz.
Thank you, Chairman. I also just want to thank staff for their hard work bringing this important environmental infrastructure to fruition. I don't think I have to, continue to hammer down how important it is for our communities to have these tree canopies, especially those who are lacking tree canopy, like District 5 and like District 4. I'll move quickly into my question. So I know early in our term, which I guess was just early last year, I think one of the first council sessions that we had, we directed staff to establish an equitable distribution of in lieu fees. And I would just like to see if we've had any update or analysis of the fruition of that strategy, if there's anything that we could point to as a result to these distribution of fees.
Thank you for thank you for the question, Councilmember Ortiz. We have had progress in that we are now tracking where the fees are coming from and know what the allocation should be. And again, as Sarah had mentioned in the presentation, some districts have a lot more development than others, so the 50% set aside is something that we're working on. I will be honest, we have that tracking, we can provide it. It is not yet distinctly 50%, like it's not being distributed in that way. We're struggling with vacant tree locations and kind of where to put the trees, where can we plant them. However, this grant that the team applied for is really amazing in that it focuses on the areas we're specifically talking about in 5 and 4 and others that meet the Justice 40 criteria. So we are expecting to see significant, upwards of 2,800 trees planted in those areas in the years to come.
Great. So as of now, just repeating what I heard, just talking real quick. So just from what I'm hearing, there isn't data necessarily that we could pinpoint as of yet in regards to our collection and distribution of the fees, like any sort of positive outcomes?
Yes, I mean, we can point to it. Again, the 50% is a target, it's a goal for our team. We've not been able to get exactly to 50% planted and distributed in the districts where there's not a lot of development occurring. So again, we have this spreadsheet, we're tracking where everything goes. It is aspirational, we're trying to get there, but this last year, again, this was implemented about a year ago, so we're not there yet. But again, we can provide that update to the council. However you'd like to see it, we can show you where the trees are being planted. We know where they are.
Okay.
Can I add to that? So we have roughly $640,000 that's sitting in that pool to be shared across all of the districts. So we had a little bit of a challenge on our first year out of the gate. Getting street trees planted takes time, and it takes a lot of outreach, and you have to plan ahead for it. So we've primarily been planting trees on our medians and in the areas behind the sound wall before the street starts. So we're getting close to having all of those spaces, which is good timing because it aligns with our new 2 tree planting programs.
So is there like a roadmap or I guess a timeline for expectation of when we could start meeting our goals along this initiative?
Well, our timeline for everything got completely thrown off when we found the invasive shot hole borer. So we're kind of in triage mode around that and planning our response to that. So I don't think that the planting program is going to roll out as I envisioned, as soon as I envisioned, but the grant covers 5 years. So we have time to spread out the planting of those 2,800 trees in those identified neighborhoods. And then the funding that comes in through mitigation fees, like I said, we have over $500,000. And based on plan review right now, if projects get built, and sometimes it takes years for things to get built after the initial plans are looked at. Sometimes they don't get planted at all. So if these projects do get completed, we're looking at another $670,000 to add to that kitty. So we have these 2 funding streams that are multi-fiscal year. So soon, but I can't promise a timeline just yet.
Okay, Great. Appreciate the work that's being done, and hoping to see this actually come to fruition where some of these districts who are vulnerable to the reduced canopy can start getting their fair share of trees. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Foley.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I have a question about the sharing the funding sources that you have. In looking at slide 5, there are several, 4 districts that have a lot of development and generate from 400,000 to 581,000. And then there's other districts that have very little. District 5 is one. District 9 in the lower tier, District 9 has the most, but it only has 45,000. So when you're talking about splitting the fees, taking 50%, is there a threshold at which you are not touching a district's funds? For example, you've got those 4 that I just said. That makes sense. But if you look at, then you drop way down into District 9, and that's 45,000. And then you go 12 and 1,500. I mean, you can see the lack of development all over the rest of the city. So is there a threshold that you're looking at for when you're taking the 50%?
I would say there's not a specific threshold. Our goal is equitable distribution of tree canopy, so there's a lot of factors that we're taking into account when we're deciding a planting project. So, you know, a district that doesn't get traditionally very much in fees, we're not going to take from that district to then go to the kitty. Like, we're going to make sure that the district gets its fair share. Again, the equitable distribution is our goal, not necessarily to make sure every dollar goes in the district where it was collected. So we you know, again, we can provide the planting map where plantings have occurred, and as we get more plantings planned, we'll continue to keep the offices updated.
Thank you. Maybe I'm not asking the question properly. I want to make sure, absolutely equitable distribution of the trees is important. Absolutely, there's no question. District 5 needs a lot more trees, but they need the trees to be planted where they're going to be healthy and survive. But that absolutely has to be a priority. On the other hand, in a district like mine, we don't have a lot of development, so I'd really want to go kicking and screaming before you take any of my 45,000 away from any of the trees when there's so many other bigger pots available. So what I'm trying to get at is to hear from you, Rick, that you're saying, oh yeah, we're gonna do equitable distribution. I get that. But oftentimes people are looking at my district and saying, well, you've got District 9, you don't need anything, or even District 6, because District 6 has a lot of trees. Although you've got a big pot of money sitting there, I'm saying, yeah. So I just want to hear a commitment that for those who don't have as much, that you're going to protect those funds too.
On the bright side or on the negative side, every district is canopy deficient. So we will absolutely not be taking from districts that have very low fees to go to the kitty. We'll make sure that the districts get what they need.
Okay, great. And I absolutely acknowledge that there are districts who don't have the tree canopy that we have in some of our more urban areas where parcels are a little bit larger and have been built out in a little bit different, wider streets, that sort of thing. So I appreciate that, thank you. I have a question. During the storms we had this year, there were a lot of trees downed. And you received, I'm assuming Department of Transportation, a lot of calls to come and remove trees. Can you walk through the notification process of a homeowner who notifies you, my tree is down, then how are they notified, what the next steps are, what is the timing of their notification, and how are they notified of the bill they're going to be received?
So if someone self-identifies, we'll explain to them, all right, we have 2 options here. You can get your own contractor to take care of the situation. Here's your permit to do so. Or if that is something that that individual doesn't want to engage with, the city can send their own contractor out to do the work on their behalf. So if someone chooses to go the city contractor route, we explain to them, all right, this is what's going to happen. We're going to do the tree work, and then at some point in the future, we're going to give you an invoice for that tree work to recuperate the city's cost. Now, if the person can't pay for that bill, we do have a process for hardship to reduce the cost of that. So at some point in the future, the invoice shows up, you go, okay, this is too much, put in the hardship application, and then the process of paying your monthly bill happens through the finance department. But if you don't self-identify, say you're out of town, tree falls down, we're gonna knock on your door and we're gonna leave a door hanger that says what happened and who to call. And then we'll send our contractor to do the work because we haven't been able to make contact with that property owner. And then that similar process starts the same way, but the invoice doesn't go to the property owner until a later date, because the contractors need time to do the work and to do all of their paperwork on that side. And then we have to re-inspect whether or not the issue is taken care of to say, yes, it's okay, we can pay this invoice now. So it is difficult to find people. And at the end of the day, it would be nice to have a conversation with someone about the situation, but we can't always make contact with that property owner.
So, just to follow up, so a property owner self-identifies and says, I want you to come out and do the work. At what point do they know what the cost is going to be?
That can be a challenge. So we can ballpark based on the size of the tree. However, there might be confounding factors that the tree service runs into that can escalate the price. For example, there could be a power line involved. They could have an extra large stump that takes on a little bit of extra cost. So we can only ballpark. We don't know exactly what's going to happen in the field because tree work is really complicated and difficult. And there's a lot of things that come into play for the safety of the people doing the work.
Okay, thank you. That helps me understand that process a little bit. I'm asking these questions because I lost a few trees in neighborhoods around District 9, and every time that happens, people are saddened by the loss of this beautiful tree. It might have been a tree that their kids climbed when their kids were little, and so now this tree is gone, and we've removed it, and they're getting a bill. They may not know what the cost of the bill, but then they have to replace it. So how is the replacement process done? Do we ever just go out and randomly place a tree, or do we wait for the homeowner to take care of it? What's the process following the tree removal?
Councilman, can I clarify? Are you talking about on the public right-of-way or on the private property? The tree?
Public right-of-way.
Okay, just making sure.
So once the tree comes out, a new tree needs to go in, and we keep track of that. And when the amount of time passes for when the new tree needed to show up, we go check and see if there's a tree there or not. And if there's not, we can't really force someone to have a tree because they're not going to take care of it. They're not going to water it. It's not going to be successful. So at the point when we let them know, okay, here's the removal, here you need to plant a new tree, we offer them the services of our city forest, who can offer reduced cost trees and in some cases free trees. So it's a gentle process.
Okay, so bottom line is the tree's removed and the homeowner has an opportunity to put in their own tree. We're not sending anyone out. Okay, that's what I wanted to find out. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. This will be helpful the next time we have a storm and we have a lot of trees that come down that need to be removed. Thank you, I appreciate it. And has a motion been made? Then I will move to accept the report.
Second. Okay, thank you so much, Councilmember Candelas.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the report and the work around expanding our urban tree canopy across the city. I got a question with regards to our tree planting. You mentioned that the process to plant trees takes a while. Maybe you can go into real high level. Why is that?
Well, first off, somebody has to say they want one, and they decide that they want to get one. So we'll issue a permit to plant a street tree, and we'll make a suggestion of what species will thrive in that location based on the infrastructure that's present. So we're looking at the size of the planting strip. We're looking for overhead lines. We're looking for sewer pipes, for water pipes. We're looking for rooftop solar collectors. So that initial site analysis is a trip. And then we have to come back, generate the paperwork, and then perhaps the property owner didn't like the type of tree we're recommending. So then there's a negotiation about the tree species. Yes.
Got it. And what if it's on public right-of-way? What if it's on like a park and we're trying to deploy trees, more trees, say in public right-of-way? Does that process still take?
That process, it does take some time. It is not quite as lengthy as indicated by the fact that this team was able to plant 2,500 trees this past year, so they get a lot done. But there is site analysis that goes into place and a lot of collaboration.
Gotcha. Well, the reason I asked that, and I know, Rick, you mentioned, we're going to be getting a planting map to see where it's going, because DOT did plant trees on a specific portion of my district on a large swath of land that coincidentally is probably going to get redeveloped in the next couple of years. And so, a resident let me know, like, oh, we got new trees, but this is where we're doing the robust community engagement process for the future vision right across the street from Lake Cunningham. So while it's great, we got, 6, 7 new trees on a stretch of South White Road where it's much needed. I mean, most likely when this parcel, Pleasant Hills, changes, that's going to be something that we basically shot ourselves in the foot. And so that's why I asked that. And more so when we do, let's see, collaborations with our volunteer management unit, PRNS, where we have volunteers mobilized on a monthly basis, and our offices get notified 2-3 weeks, usually beforehand. One of my suggestions is, hey, we're going to have 50, 60, 70, 80 volunteers. Let's plant some trees. And, oh, no, we can't do that because it takes time to get the trees. Well, okay, great. Well, maybe that's something that we can talk about specifically for East San Jose, District 8 that I represent. I mean, it would be worth considering implementing a certain allocation of trees to be able to deploy if we want to expand the numbers expand the numbers of trees being planted by our volunteer workforce as part of that process. So maybe you could, if there's a comment, I'm all ears.
Councilmember John Risto again. If I'm understanding the first part of that, which was an observation at Pleasant Hill, what was the golf course and is now being contemplated for new development, and maybe my pal John too can help out on this. When we were going to, if we've gone out there and planted trees, I want to say that we would, there's no development plans yet, so we don't know exactly what's going to go on there, but we're pretty sure what the alignment of the roadway is going to be, and there's no sidewalk. It's on that side of the road, if I remember. We know what the plan line of the road on White Road there is. My guess or my hope is that we would have planted those trees, which would have then been in a future parkway strip on the street right-of-way in front of that. Now, I don't know that for sure, but we've done that before in other places where we actually look at where the plan line of the roadway should be, where the planting strip's going to be, and if we're going to put those in advance, we're going to put them there. I don't know that we put them there, but I will go out and check it to see what
No, I heard from staff. That's why we knew, because one of the residents let me know, like, oh, great, we got trees. But isn't this what we met with last week to talk about, the future vision of this area? Right. Like, it seems counterintuitive. So, I mean, I didn't know.
And we don't know the plans yet, so.
Correct, when we don't. But the trees are planted.
Right, okay.
Yep.
So this is a historic problem because the different divisions weren't talking together. So in one of my slides, I have my silly little Google map where I track all of the development projects so that when projects are being planned, I can reconcile those two things. Because we can plant a tree there today, but in 2 years, it's going to be low-income housing. So which is more important. So we try not to do things where we know something is going to change. But again, I'm kind of on like this 3-4 year lag of things getting built.
No worries, and I appreciate it. Is there any comment on the collaboration with our other, our right hand speaking to our left hand with regards to working with PRNS and our departments working collaboratively with one another to deploy more trees?
Well, I think they do quite extensively. There are a number of tree plantings that occur. The ones on the weekend primarily are led by parks staff, PRNS staff, but we do talk a lot. Again, cleaning up an area versus planting a tree, there's a lot more that needs to go into planting a tree, including making sure it'll survive, getting irrigation, or kind of drawing the plans in place. So it takes a lot more time to coordinate. So again, we do a lot, but it does take additional time to coordinate. So I think as our capacity grows, we can see about extending that. But again, all of these take staff time, staff energy, and there's a lot on everyone's plate. So good suggestion. I think we'll look to see if we can expand that. But again, I don't want to, conflate planting trees and what that takes versus cleaning up a site or something like
Absolutely
that.
Absolutely not. No. And I mean, we want to work smarter, not harder, with regards to how we do things. And if we're at a park where there's already trees existing, I mean, it would make sense. We're not doing any new infrastructure with regards to making sure they're planted. It's just something to think about. But again, I appreciate the work that's going into it. It seems a lot easier than it's said. But no, I know it's difficult and it's a challenge, but I appreciate the work that you do. And anytime I holler about a tree, you all are there. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. I'll just make a few brief remarks and save some questions for later since we're going long in this meeting today. But I want to thank the team for all the work that you're doing, and thank the arborists you've staffed up with folks that are around and out about in the city. I see them on the shoulders looking at trees that have been planted. I see them regularly in my district. I'm sure they're in other places around the city as well. It's amazing when I drive down a street and say, oh my gosh, there's 10 new trees in the median here that weren't here a month ago. And so things are really happening, and I'm excited about it. And I'm also excited about the park mapping exercise that's happening to help us determine where there's places that we can do tree plantings in parks. And I was really gratified. Saturday, I guess I've been typecast as the tree person because on Saturday during the mayor's service, I was assigned to plant trees at Happy Hollow, but I was there with the arborists, and so it was great to talk to them and interact with them about what they're doing and how they do their work. And so I'm really excited about how they talked about the collaboration between the departments, that they're working, helping the PRNS. PRNS has one arborist now, DOT has a few. They're working together, helping each other so that there's not silos anymore like there used to be, and that's really exciting. I was going to ask a question about what happens when we're driving through an area where new trees have been planted and we see a tree that doesn't look like it did well, or there's an issue, or what's unfortunately happening periodically is somebody stealing the wood that was holding a tree up and the tree's kind of fallen over. Is there an official place we should be reporting those things when they are noticed?
Yeah, just reach out to the forestry group. Our new trees are under warranty with our contractor, so if it doesn't establish something happens to it, they have to put in a new one. We will periodically have our contractors adjust stakes, make some tweaks to the system. So yeah, just reach out to the Trees and Sidewalk main desk and we'll get you to the person you need to get it fixed.
Thank you. And another thing we'll talk about separately later, but we're having this thought in our office about how we might use some of our tree funds to provide grants to homeowners who want to plant trees on their parking strips, because people would like to plant trees, but they don't necessarily have the funding for it. Is there, I guess you wanted to say
the free tree program that Sarah alluded to pretty much does what you just said. Okay. So we'll be providing.
Stay tuned on that one.
Yeah. Oh, good. Thank you so much. That's exciting. And as Councilmember Foley, one of your answers to Councilmember Foley's questions is an important thing to keep in mind. Even though we are focusing on certain areas, our numbers are dismal everywhere. So we have a canopy deficient citywide, and so I'm glad that we're thinking citywide and also focusing on areas that have a even greater deficiency. But thank you for everything you're doing. We have a motion, so let's vote. All right, that motion carries 5-0. What I'm going to recommend now is that we're going to skip ahead to item 5, which is our Diridon Station Airport Connector project. We'll do that item, take that item out of order first before we get to the Move San Jose plan.
John? Yeah, thank you, Councilmember John Risso, Director of Transportation. Waiting for Mookie to get down and the rest of the team, and then we'll jump into it. This is the potential new connection between the airport and Diridon Station, and we want to give you an update on the first phase that we're working on right now with the team that the council selected last year. We're at a very good point where we're learning a lot about the project, and we're going to do a presentation today. Mookie, you want to say anything?
No, we've had a very collaborative, Mookie Patel with the Aviation Department. We've had a very collaborative conversation amongst the DOT staff and the airport, and they've brought me up to speed, and I'm glad to be here.
And let me just introduce, besides Mookie and myself, Ramses Madhu, division manager with departments leading the project, and we do have a number of members from the team in case there's any questions of the council. Thanks, Ramses.
Thanks, John. Ramses Madhu, Division Manager of Planning, Policy, and Sustainability. I'm here to give you a status update on our Airport Connector project. Kind of stepping back for a second, reminding us why we're looking at this and what we're actually doing, right? So what are we really looking at? Primarily, we're looking at a transit connection, a direct grade-separated transit connection from Diridon Station to Terminal B at the airport. With an optional intra-airport connector, basically a circulator around the airport. Why are we doing this? I wish we had done our other item first because we're going to talk about citywide transportation planning, but the city has an extreme need for a lot more transit to meet our goals, right? We are predominantly a auto-focused transportation system still, and we have a lot of work to do to, one, improve our current transit systems, making sure buses and light rail and all of that get the best service they can out of our systems, and then also new and expanded transit services. This is one of the projects that we're looking at under that banner. Right now, why are we looking at this now? Right now, we're also planning the Diridon integrated station, seeing how this project can fit into that. We're also working with the Google team on the Downtown West project, making sure this can connect with that major land use change, and is also integrating with the master plan at the airport. This is a picture, a rendering of the future Diridon station update. We're already incorporating plans for this project into that project. You can see there right along the front edge of that lifted project, you can see the airport connector cars moving across the deck there. So we're trying to make sure, or we're not trying to make sure, we are integrating all of the work across these different projects to ensure that we get the best transportation outcome that we can. Now, one of the other reasons we're so interested in this project is that the way that transit is built today looks like this at the LA airport. You have a project that's costing roughly $2 billion to build, and then is expected to cost another $5 billion to operate and maintain over its lifetime. In our project, we are looking at a longer guideway and a significantly reduced construction cost. Our current estimates do put us roughly within the target goal of roughly $500 million for the initial segment, though the full project would likely cost more. We're also removing that burden on the public dollars to do the operations and maintenance and the way that this project is currently proposed to run. So what is our delivery method? How are we trying to accomplish this change in transit projects? We're working with a private partner who we've brought in through the special procurement process that Council adopted in a public-private partnership through what's called a pre-development agreement. In this pre-development agreement, we've lined up the folks who would operate the system, the folks who would build the system, the folks who would finance the system, and the folks who would supply the technology for the system, and the city, all at the same table at the same time, making sure that the project's final goal of making sure it has the best transit riders experience is shared by everyone from day one.
making a lot of streamlining decisions and reducing the amount of extra contractor and consultant costs that are commonly associated with projects like this. All right, so that's the background. Where are we now? We're just about at the end of our feasibility validation phase. This is a multi-phase structured process where at each major stage, council chooses whether we continue or not. We are expecting to come in roughly late summer, early fall, with our actual proposal to council on this, on whether we think this is actually a feasible system or not. We're here today to discuss some of the learnings that we've gotten so far. All right. So the feasibility report is made up of a few different chapters. First is the technology chapter. Overall, that is progressing well in line with expectations with some risks to remain. We'll go into that in more detail in a second. Capital costs are generally in line with our expectations, though some of the financial modeling is putting a higher amount of the cost of this project on the public side versus the private side. And then, of course, impacts from inflation, interest rates, and other elements, design elements of the project are increasing the cost, and we're trying to reduce what that looks like. On financial viability, again, we'll go more deeply into this in a second. There are questions still remain around the cost and fair revenues. And in particular, we're still prodding the assumptions in our own ridership forecasts and scenarios to make sure we're making the best recommendation we can. On technical feasibility, we've made significant progress from the early alpha prototype car in the project. You can see here on the left side, that was the original design, and we're now moving into this second design here on the bottom. Glideways is doing that. We've also looked at the conceptual design, and this is a major achievement. We have a conceptual design for the entire alignment through the airport, through Guadalupe Gardens, and going into downtown that allows us to really dive into what the costs of this project might be and how it might work. That's no small feat in the small amount of time that we've been working on this. Open questions. We are in a technology development phase of this project, so there are still quite a few milestones to make sure what is now the beta prototype becomes the production vehicle. There were a couple delays in that process happening so far, though we believe that those are within the tolerance we can have for those delays. And we're still working with the CPUC to understand exactly what the approval process will be for the project. This is a new type of technology used in a new type of way, and so the CPUC is still trying to work out exactly how they're going to relate to this project and what processes will be used. We're assuming the most stringent process from the CPUC, which is what general transit lines now use, partially just to make good planning decisions in terms of our own timing and also to make sure that we're held up to the highest standards of safety and operations analysis. Yeah, leave it there. All right, commercial structure. The commercial structure is in line with what we had proposed in our RFP. This would create basically an agreement where the city would be the franchisor and the system would operate under a franchisee agreement under the conditions that the city council would demand at the time of authorizing the system. Of course, there's a lot of risk allocation trade-offs that we need to work out there and how that's going to work out. But that final negotiations to create that commercial structure will come if council chooses to go forward with the project, probably in about 3 years, 2 to 3 years, when we really sit down and negotiate those terms. Financial feasibility. Positives here. Initial estimates do show us to have closely met our highly ambitious project total cost goals. And now we are working to see how we can make sure to build the whole system. So that
initial 500 million was intended for the airport to Diridon. Now we're talking about the inter-airport connector, things like that. This adds cost, of course. There are a lot of open questions, though. With the effects of the pandemic, particularly on air traffic, we're still trying to figure out exactly what numbers we should use to underpin the basic ridership numbers. This has been a lot of work needs to go into making sure we get the right numbers if we're going to be investing so much money from the public side. And of course, our private partners are just as interested in making sure those numbers are valid, because they're going to be putting a lot of money in themselves and a lot of effort. To do that, we're completing a lot of additional scenario analysis, basically stress testing, right? How much leeway do we have in ridership change? How much leeway do we have in project cost escalation? How much leeway do we have in the revenue side of things to make this project viable? And all of that stress testing will be in the final report we'll be bringing to you at Council later this summer or early fall. All right, benefit and cost analysis is one of the last parts of our report. So far, benefit cost ratio is looking very positive, meaning the amount of value brought out of the project per dollar put in is positive, even in our conservative assumptions. The basis for this is the process is recommended by our federal partners, who would be using these numbers to potentially give us grants to produce this project. So we're pretty happy with this. We are, of course, still prodding to make sure that all the numbers are calculated in the way that they need to be, and that those same assumptions that we're talking about in terms of ridership and the like are also being brought into this number. All right, so there are two funding pieces that are coming up for this project. If council so chooses to go into phase 2, we need to get that funded. We are working one. We've already applied for some early funding there that would get us into the federal grant program system through the TIFIA program, which is a loans program. That would be $2 million if we're successful. We've put a request in to continue funding from VTA and Measure A, which is the money we're working on already from VTA to support this project. We're also looking to reduce some of the scope of phase 2 to reduce its cost to make it move faster and just keep the momentum going. And then, of course, the actual construction funding, we're starting to look at what it means to get into that larger amount. Looking at federal New Starts as a potential funding program. We've already talked to the state CalSTA organization about trying to get into the cap and trade funding through the inner city rail money there. And of course, as I already talked about, TIFIA, the federal loans program for this. This is the timeline looking forward. We're hoping to get the final feasibility report sometime in June, though we're happy to wait a little bit longer to make sure that all the analysis and stress testing is done well, so that all staff are comfortable with making a recommendation to go forward or not to go forward. We'll then bring that to council in late summer, early fall, once it's socialized and inked. And with that, we're here for questions.
Thank you so much. I know we have some members of the public here to speak on this, so go ahead.
Thank you. I will begin calling names for public comment in groups of 5. When I call your name, please make your way to the podium and form a line. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Olegario, Alejandro, Jose, Peter, and Harry, please.
Can you tell me how many total there are? I wanted to...
There are 15 total.
15. Okay, I think because we have some people who have to head to another meeting, we're going to cut the time down to 1 minute per comment. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Cohen, Vice Chair Davis, and members of this committee. My name is Olegario Guzman. I'm a member of La Una, and I've been a resident of San Jose the last 10 years. I'm here to publicly express support to proceed with this project. Due to the efforts of SJ Partners and the airport connector project planners, this project has gone through every necessary step to join the very best partners for this project to connect the San Jose Mineta Airport and the San Jose Diridon Station. a connection that is frankly long overdue. The South Bay area, especially San Jose, is home to hundreds of tradespeople like myself. This connection project would allow us to work in the area where we live in, which translates to more time with our families, less time on the road, meaning less risk on the road, and reducing our carbon footprint. This connector project also offers further opportunity to join the trades by allowing.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Cohen, Vice Chair Davis, members of the committee. My name is Alejandro Martinez. I've been a San Jose resident for over 20 years, and I've been a member of the Labor's Local 270 for 8 years. Today, I want to voice my strong support for the Airport Connector project. This project will bring more jobs and better opportunities to our community. It will provide good-paying jobs with benefits, especially for young adults and anyone looking for a fresh start, skill training through our apprenticeship program. When I was younger, I had big dreams of going to college, have a career, and have a family. Unfortunately, life didn't go as planned. I found myself struggling to making ends meet while raising a family here in San Jose where the cost of living is so high. After years of hardship, the Labor's Union gave me a second chance. I was able to build a career as a skilled laborer. This long-term project, so close to home, will create opportunities to others like me who are looking for a way.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, good afternoon, Chair and members of the community. My name is Jose Mexicano, and I've been a member of Local 270 for 18 years and a resident for 40. I'm here to strongly support the Airport Connector project. As a resident of San Jose, I understand that this project has gone through a rigorous process to get through this point and offers a reliable, cost-effective solution to link the city and the regional hub. As a local union member, this career has offered me a second chance where I've learned valuable work skills through apprenticeship programs. If not for the Labor's Union, I would not have been able to live in San Jose and support my family. However, I find out that I have to commute hours to go to work and go into areas that are not San Jose because in San Jose it's slowed down. Long-term projects like this are incredibly important because it allows San Jose residents to work close to home and avoid long commutes. This not only reduces our carbon footprint, but also allows me to work close to my family.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Peter LaRomanios. I'm here on behalf of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group. We're excited to speak in support of moving this important project forward. This project offers a new, reliable, affordable, and innovative solution to connect SJC to our major transit hub at Diridon. Doing so promotes the advancement of technology with a lower carbon footprint that aligns with the next generation of mobility that is both sustainable and accessible to all community members. Further, the project is a key part of the vision for the expanded Diridon intermodal station and would encourage greater usage of public transportation. As an expanded Diridon station would accommodate the most modal connections of any transit facility in the Bay Area, including future connections to BART and high-speed rail. We look forward to seeing this project move forward to the next phase of study, and for this exciting project to ultimately drive significant economic activity and enhance connectivity for our region. Once again, the leadership group is happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'd like to call the next 5 speakers: Rod, Elliot, Julian, Gokul, and Kenneth, please.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Harry Neal. I'm a transit advocate here in San Jose. First of all, I'd like to thank staff for the presentation. However, this project, I think, in its current incarnation, is very deeply flawed. There should be a connector between Diridon and the airport, absolutely. However, I think to do it in an autonomous pods kind of way is a waste of money, waste of resources, waste of time. We know that rail vehicles are far more efficient, and in a future where we need to be focusing on energy efficiency, that is important. We know that rubber-tired vehicles, as the rubber tires wear down, they emit particulate matter that ends up in our waterways, in our food, in our bodies, even in our brains. I think a future where we are committing to additional rubber-tired vehicles, even if they are smaller than existing ones, is a fundamentally unsustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
One minute is not very comfortable for old politicians. I'm here on my own. I don't accept commissions for these kinds of things. In 100 years, 50 years, this valley is going to look a lot like Paris or Toronto or Tokyo, communities with broad areas of coverage, multiple focal points, but major airports and major downtown stations. You're going to have to build a massive mass transportation capacity because you can never handle that traffic on roadway systems. This is the missing link for the system that's master planned already. The first and last mile issue is very difficult to handle. This is your last mile for the whole Central Valley.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Elliot Jameson. I'm with Plenary Americas, the lead developer for the Connection Partners team. And I wanted to, first of all, thank the council and staff for the opportunity to come and give this update today. And just wanted to emphasize a couple of things about our intended approach to the project should the city decide to move forward with it. First, as was mentioned in the presentation, our feasibility work so far has indicated sort of three key things. First, that the project can be delivered at a significantly lower cost than alternatives. Second, that there's substantial demand for this project now and in the future as part of a greater regional network. And third, that the benefits significantly exceed the cost. And the other point that I wanted to make was that we have developed a draft report. We're in the process of working with DOT and airport staff to develop that into a final report. There's many decisions yet to be made. We look forward to continuing sort of in a spirit of partnership and taking into account.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, Chair Cohen, Vice Chair Davis, and members of the council. My name is Julian Lake, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Bay Area Council in support of this truly innovative and exciting project that I'm proud to say is coming here to San Jose, both in my role as Director of Policy and Energy at Bay Area Council, but also as a citizen of San Jose and resident of downtown. The council is happy to support this project's innovative automated design. We believe that it will be instrumental for us meeting our transit and climate goals in the city of San Jose, as well as the region. We applaud the project for taking into account considering a public-private partnership solution, which we believe will speed the project's time along, as well as reduce costs on the project. In addition, we think that this project is indicative of all of the sort of transformation that we can expect from a vibrant and innovative San Jose.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, council members. It's Gokul Hamadi. I'm CEO of Glideways. Of course, we are very excited with this project. We are looking forward to taking it to the next step. I think a lot has been said by DOT staff as well as my colleague from plenary. I'll just say two things, really. Number one, it's connecting two very important points very efficiently and very conveniently with great experience, we believe, for riders. And it has two implications. We're very happy that it will provide an alternative to car ownership. And that is something that is really required as we think about solutions for San Jose as well as for the region. And then second, it really raises the entire transit ecosystem. And that's what we are about. We want to really help the entire transit ecosystem get better and ridership behaviors change so that the whole city as well as the region benefits from it. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'd like to call the final group of speakers to the podium. Joe Lopez, Blair, Shelley, Carlos, Jason, and Jordan, please.
Good afternoon, Chair Davis, Councilmember Colin, or Chair Colin, members of the community. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Kenneth Doe. I'm a field rep for the Carpenters Union 405 in San Jose, and I've also been a resident of San Jose for over 40 years. Dang, getting close to 50. I really hate to say that, but so I lost track. So not only am I here on behalf of our members, but the local residents as well. So I respectfully ask that you consider the staff's report, push this project forward, and move it to council for consideration. This project would benefit local business, provide easy transportation method for residents. With infrastructure like this in place, business would be more inclined to establish themselves in San Jose.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, Vice Chair, Chair, committee members. I'm Shelley Doran, representing the Webcor Obayashi Construction Partnership for this project. As the largest employer of carpenters, union laborers, operating engineers in the state of California, we're very excited to have the opportunity to have you move this project forward for us. It's vitally important right now at this time, especially with all of the private work that has dried up in our industry, that we have these public-private partnerships to employ our local teams of labor. Further to that, we've also seen around these construction projects that a lot of small business is spurned from that, and as we know, downtown San Jose really needs to be reactivated, so we urge you to move this project forward to council. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. How you guys doing? My name is Joe Lopez. I'm a local resident of San Jose. I'm a born and raised native here, San Jose, 42 years. I am a representative for the Carpenters Union in San Jose. We represent over 4,000 members that actually live in Santa Clara County. And we just are happy to approve this project for the Diridon station to the airport connection. Creating opportunity for our members to work in their backyard and their home is big for us. Partnering up with Webcor, it's a good deal. And just to see the improvements in, from the airport to downtown, just for visitors and just for us working, living here our whole life, it's just good to see. So we hope that you guys move forward with these plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Jordan Moldow, District 3. For those of us who are at the last VTA board meeting, I don't think any of us were feeling that great that BART cars are innovative in their design. Bespoke systems are harder to procure, harder to maintain in the long run. They might be cheaper to build in the short term, but 30, 40 years down the line, I don't think people will be very happy if we build a bespoke system rather than using a tried and true technology. Such as light rail or buses. We absolutely deserve transit between Diridon and the airport, but I think there's probably better ways to do it using more standard technology that will be, again, easier to procure, easier to maintain. And public transit deserves to be public. I'm concerned about a public-private partnership for public transportation. And I'm also concerned that with these cars, it's hard for families that are bigger than 4 to.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, council members and committee staff. My name is Jason Su with the Guadalupe River Park Conservancy. Our mission is to provide community leadership for the active use and development of the Guadalupe River Park through education, advocacy, and stewardship. We support the acceptance of this status report and wish to take this time to commend the proactive outreach by Glideways, Plenary, Airport, and Department of Transportation on this project. Enabling Ways, a future airport connector, and San Jose's bird's eye gateway to San Jose, the Guadalupe Gardens, can support each other. We would also appreciate seeing a stop that links the line to the Rotary Playgarden, further increasing the accessibility of San Jose's first all-inclusive play space. And we hope this further reduces barriers to accessing parks and play. Thank you for your consideration on this item.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, Chair Cohen and committee members. Thank you for allowing me to speak for a whole minute. My name is Carlos Duran, a field representative for the NorCal Carpenters Union, representing nearly 37,000 members, including 7,000 apprentices here in Northern California. I urge you to accept the staff report and advance the airport connector to Diridon Station project. This project isn't just about transportation, it's about creating a brighter future for San Jose. The project will be built by a union general contractor with strong ties to the Joint Apprenticeship Training Committee, providing a pathway to rewarding careers in carpentry. Advancing this project means creating numerous well-paying jobs, offering financial stability and health benefits to workers and their families. Moreover, the wages earned will be spent locally, supporting small businesses, fostering economic growth, and improving our community's quality of life. This project promises a cycle of prosperity, investing in our workforce and our city's future. In conclusion,
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, Blair Beekman. It's difficult for me to fully understand this item as well as I can. I'm concerned about it. Thank you for the previous public comment that offered, how do we consider the future of private-public partnerships, the use of vehicles, buses and such. We do have that availability. Good luck in how to address those sort of issues as well. I'm really concerned about the future of automatic vehicles to begin with. I do feel that building this underground may be a way to better address the future of automatic vehicle use is through underground use. So I'm back and forth on this project. Really learn to include light rail operators, and they're not included in these sort of conversations. Why not? They should be much more often in our transportation conversations, I feel. And thanks.
No other public comment. Back to the committee.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with Councilmember Davis since she has to step out.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to the whole team for all the work, and I'm really excited that we've gotten this far. I think this is coming, is this update coming to council, or are you coming to council with the full report when it's done this summer?
We'll come with, yeah, this is just a status report. There'll be a fully new report that's based on the final version of the feasibility report at that point. So this is kind of socializing what's coming out of the report so far and kind of keeping it in front of your eyes.
Okay, great. Thank you. And will the full report have clearer timelines?
As clear as we can. Timelines will be based on funding, right? So as much as we can do it.
Understood. Thank you. I'll move approval of the status report.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Councilmember Ortiz.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Thank you to staff's presentation and as well as all of our community public contributors. So wanted to clarify a couple points that came up in regards to the financial feasibility section of the draft feasibility report. So on page 3, the memo says, the initially proposed account amounts and structure of payments in the draft plan do not fit the city's goals, nor are they within sustainable budgetary constraints. Can we speak more to this friction? Is there any update on how further negotiations have gone?
Right, so just to clarify, we're not in negotiation yet. Right now what we're trying to understand is what the actual project costs will be based on the assumptions we can make. So what we'll be doing between now and when we bring you the final report is trying to reduce assumed cost as much as possible, as well as trying to figure out what proposed financial structures can actually work for the city. Some initial ideas did outstep the ability for the city to take this project on, and so we've given feedback into the financial models to say, hey, we need better approaches to this. Right, so a lot of when we say we're doing stress testing is both on one end, making sure our base assumptions around ridership and all of that are prodded as hard as possible, and then also pushing our private partners to come to the table with the best outline for a project as we can get. Right, so when we come to you with a final report, what we'll be doing is recommending, if staff agrees at that point, and we're not there yet, whether we think this project can move forward under the budget conditions that we'll see at that point.
Okay. Next question is, can you speak more clearly to the significant cost reductions you write to that are likely needed for phase 2, and how much of a reduction do you estimate is needed?
Yeah, so originally we were looking at moving all the way to what we call 30% design in phase 2, and that's actually a substantial cost and design money. Usually projects like this don't go all the way to 30% design in what we would call phase 2 here in the project development phase. The reason we were doing that in the original setup for the project was to reduce the amount of risk and increase the amount of knowledge we all had before we went into that final negotiation. But the way that funding in America and California works for transit projects is making it so that we would have to come up with $30–40 million to get through phase 2. And so what we're trying to do is we're looking at different ways to reshape phase 2. So one, probably moving that amount of design down to what's normal in a project like this, about 15%, enough to get through the environmental process. And then we're looking at breaking up that phase into smaller pieces so that we can use smaller chunks of money to keep the project moving forward.
Okay, great. Those are all my questions. You know, I'd be straight up. The individuals involved in the project know I've been skeptical about this project. You know, Ramses, that I've been skeptical, and I've had raised quite a few concerns. You know, I just feel like whenever innovation, and especially within any business, begins to be mentioned, it usually means excluding jobs for working people that have traditionally breathed life into that industry, and I'm talking about our transit workers. And while this project can bring construction jobs, I'm nervous of the unintended consequences that this could bring in, and how it may impact our individuals who've essentially carried the transportation system of this county on their backs. So I'm nervous about that. I'm nervous that this, to me, in my personal opinion, could be moving our city into privatizing our public transportation system. And then, you know, what does that look like for the rate of pay for the workers that work on these systems? Who's going to be fixing them? Who's going to be managing them? There's a lot of discussions that still need to be had. That being said, you know, I will vote yes on this to move the conversation forward, but I just want to raise those concerns. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I appreciate the presentation today. This is a status report that we'll be hearing more details on. Obviously, I believe the Glideways will be here with a demonstration in August so we can see things up close. I'm excited by the idea of an efficient, flexible, and sustainable solution to this short transportation piece that is someone called it last mile. It's the last, 5 miles between the train and an airport. Obviously, I'm always skeptical of projections of ridership at any of these kinds of systems. I don't know if we know for sure how many people do or would ride to Diridon in order to then get to the airport, but obviously as we build out the transportation system, which we'll have BART to Diridon and other forms of transit, we can expect more people then could use it if there were a simple connection. I'm also excited about the inter-terminal or intra-terminal portion of this that will help us deal with a problem that we didn't really design appropriately when the airport was built in the first place without a simple way to connect between our terminals and our parking. Obviously, getting us electrified is an important part of this as well. And so I'm certainly excited by new technologies that are going to bring us into a new type of transportation system that I think is the way of the future. And more cost effective than rail, which I think we've all come to hear as we're stuck with certain systems like our light rail and BART systems, which we have to build out and expand in order to improve connectivity. But when we have the opportunity to do a system that won't be necessarily part of the current system, this is about 1/3 of the cost per mile, I think is about right. Is that correct?
We'll see. We hope so.
I mean, the idea is that it'll be much cheaper per mile than a rail.
That's correct.
And sort of tongue-in-cheek, I had raised this last week when we had a pre-briefing on this item. This is for Jason and the Guadalupe River Park folks. I think this system can be an attractive system that even could go through your park and still be a great attraction for the public, just kind of as the monorails are in other parts of the country and world where people come to see it, because I think this is a much different kind of transit than noisy trains that come through. So just something to keep in mind as we're trying to find the appropriate route getting to the airport in the north end. So I think, don't have any other hands up, we're going to move on to a vote. And we had 2 folks leave, so that item passes 3-0. That brings us back to item 4. We still have a couple of items on the agenda. I'm going to ask now for a vote of the remaining members of the committee to defer item 6 to a meeting after the summer. I think that'll be, August or September when we hold one of our next 2 T&E meetings. So we have a motion to defer item 6.
Move to defer item 6.
Second.
All right, let's vote to defer item 6.
Item 4, right?
We have to do item 4 right after that. I just want to defer item 6 now and then. You're ready? Okay, there you go. We'll vote. All right, that motion carries. We'll defer item 6 to a later date, and we'll go back to item 4, our Move San Jose plan.
Thank you again, Councilmember Chair Cohen, John Risto, Director of Transportation, and we do want to move right along to a broader picture of transportation in the city of San Jose, and we're going to do a very brief presentation of where we are with this, and we'll make that as brief as possible. Thanks. With me is Ramses Madhu, Division Manager for DOT, and Wilson Tam, our Transportation Planning Manager that's lead on this project.
All right, let's see how fast we can do this. Move San Jose is our citywide transportation plan that is intended as the overall guiding document for the city's transportation work. The way that this plan works is as an umbrella plan to all of our modal plans, like our emerging mobility plan, our better bike plan, and our multimodal plans, which are kind of area plans. In those plans, we have literally hundreds of proposed projects. And in each one of those plans, we have lists of prioritization. Now, how do we prioritize above that? How do we make the totality of the thousands of projects in DOT fit into the overall scheme? Move San Jose is our attempt to do that. This will help us prioritize our resources on the highest community needs, uses a data-driven process to do that, and relies on integrating community feedback to make that happen. Reminding those who were here and then bringing those who were not here up to speed, Move San Jose it was passed in 2022. These are the 9 goals of the plan. I would say the ones on the left side are kind of the driving ones, and everything else is trying to follow those, right? 1, access for all, an equitable transportation system, ensuring that all across the city can get around and that the cost of that mobility is coming down. 2, cleaning the air, making sure we're having an environmentally sound system, and then, of course, transportation safety. To respond to those 9 goals, we put out 3 pillars. These are some examples of the strategies within those pillars. First is streets. This is redesigning the streets. Transit. This was the big move in this plan. We brought transit to the forefront of what San Jose as a city needs to do to support that. Two highlights there: one, what we just talked about, increasing transit. Two is improving existing transit. And this is ensuring that buses, light rail, and systems like that can operate that much more efficiently and hopefully bring more of those services into the city. Since we passed the plan in 2020, we have had a very fun time with data because of the pandemic and what that has done to travel patterns. We have some very aggressive targets in the city of San Jose in our general plan to reduce drive alone. You can see there the 2030 target, which is significantly lower than current usage. What we've seen so far is some positive movement in the walk and carpool space. Unfortunately, what's not in this data yet is the work from home numbers, which would probably change these figures a decent amount. Some of the hurdles that and to just highlight, we're seeing reduction in public transit usage and a slight variation in bike usage. It's probably more of a stagnation there. We continue to see the same hurdles. Safety. People don't feel safe biking in a lot of the city yet. They don't feel safe walking. We need to improve this. Access and cost, that equitable system is not totally there yet. And then convenience and connectivity. The two areas within all of the goals that continue to stand out are safety and access for all. This is why we're focusing so much of our efforts in improving the safety of our system. You all know how incredible our Vision Zero team has been over the last few years in improving safety and driving projects. And of course, access for all, making sure that our money goes where it's actually helping folks who don't already have access. And I'm going to keep moving on to pass it on to Wilson to talk about some of the projects that are leading the way under this effort.
Thank you, Ramses. Wilson Tam, Transportation Planning Manager. To follow up with Ramses, I'm going to talk about 5 projects that we have been prioritizing to address the low-performing areas of the city. So the first one is in District 3 and District 7, and that is on Story Road and Key Street. District 7 and 3 have been identified according to the Move San Jose plan to be really deficient in transit operations. The transit travel time actually takes 2 times, more than 2 times the amount of time to drive around in District 7. So the goal for prioritizing Story and Keys project is to develop complete streets to emphasize transit operations and people's access to transit. So we have things such as like separated bikeway, transporting islands and things of that nature. And that project has been secured for construction funding over the next 5 years. So the next project is a project coming out of the Downtown Transportation Plan, which has identified 22 mobility hubs to be located throughout the downtown area to provide the last mile connection that has been identified as the deficient areas in the city. These 2 mobility hubs have been secured for funding by MTC to be constructed over the next 3 years, and they're located on San Fernando Street. And the goal here is to provide a last mile connection near transit stations to allow students at university to pick up an e-bike or scooter or a cargo e-bike to traverse back and forth between the Diridon station, the SOFA district, as well as the university. So the council adopted the Transit First policy 2 years ago, and this is to authorize staff to prioritize transit in our street improvement projects. And since 2022, we have been able to do a lot of the transit operations improvements, such as deploying the Centralized Transit Signal Priority System, or CTSP. We have 3 routes, Route 66, 68, and 568 routes, for a total of 120 intersections, to have a signal programmed in such a way so that the buses would be prioritized for a green light whenever they approach the intersection. And we have been able to secure funding to do a citywide centralized transit signal priority system over the last 5 years with a grant secured by the MTC. Smart parking policy is also a strategy coming out of the Move San Jose plan. And since then, the council has been able to pass policies to address parking issues. So one of the policies here is to eliminate the minimum parking requirement citywide 2 years ago in 2022. And we've also been able to accompany the parking minimum removal policy with the Transportation Demand Management Ordinance, with the hope that as the developments are going to right-size the parking, then the associated incentive programs can be provided to the tenants. And I just called out 4 of the many projects that we have been doing in the pipeline. But we, as Ramses said, we have 100 of projects in the pipeline, and we need to have a way to prioritize our investment strategy as a department. So another project we have been doing is to develop a system with a data-driven system to help inform decision-making in DOT in terms of what would be the next best project to invest over the next few years. And so we have 40 key performance indicators to drive the numbers to help to identify which projects would help move the needle to address the low performing areas of the city in a targeted approach. And this decision support system has been done as part of the Move San Jose plan 2 years ago, and we are right now undergoing an internal update with the hope that this system can be brought to public, making a public-facing system to allow the transparent disclosure about how DOT investments are made. With that, and I'll bring it back to Ramses.
Yeah, I'll just add, this will be an annual report to you, and the annual reports will be based on the outcome of this decision support system going forward, making sure that we're always looking at the same metrics every time we come to you.
Thank you so much.
That concludes our report.
Do we have members of the public?
We have 3 requests to speak. When I call your name, please make your way down to the podium. Jordan, Blair, and Harry, please.
Jordan Moldow, District 3, thanks for the report. There's a lot of good work being done. I know I come here a lot to say we need to do X, Y, and Z. But we do appreciate everything that's being done, and every bike lane helps, every bus lane helps. It's just that a little bit of bike lane gets a little bit of benefit. We need a lot more things to get a lot more benefit. And it needs to be something that the city prioritizes. I know the city is prioritizing things like blight, but as we saw in the first presentation today, a lot of blight in the city is related to vehicles, even not factoring in lived-in vehicles. And so if we give people more ways to ditch their vehicles and rely on transit, biking, and walking, that's just going to have benefits in many avenues of the city. One thing I want to call out, when you come to meetings like this, there's a parking validator machine that you can put a ticket into and get free parking. There is no such thing, as far as I'm aware, in terms of transit validation. That's just one example of showing how in our society we have all these things where we subsidize private vehicle usage, but we don't give the same sort of subsidies to transit. And so in order to get to those numbers that we're targeting, that we're very far away from, we really need to turn things on their head and really think about how we can make a transit-oriented and bike-oriented society. And that's going to involve giving much more priority to those alternative modes as opposed to cars compared to what we've done historically. Let's see. Oh, in terms of transit priorities, so we have a transit first priority policy, and I think we could be using that to a greater degree. I know we have some BRTs in the pipeline, but there's a lot more that we could hopefully do faster with quick build.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello again. Once again, I'd like to thank staff for their report. As great as the goals are for the Move San Jose plan, we are not being nearly as aggressive enough to meet it. We need to be far more aggressive on doing more to give our resources to the mobility modes that have been underserved historically. We have these massive roads that are used only for private vehicles, almost exclusively, and we still maintain them to those standards, even though we have this great plan that we should be following. There are lots of small things we can do, but we do also need to do big things to address that. Road diets is one. The city of Houston found that they have an enormous deficit, in part because they have so many roads to maintain. We are a little bit in the same bucket, so we absolutely need to be giving more of our road space to the modes that serve people more effectively than private vehicles, as well as more financially effectively for us in the city. And a discussion of transportation can also not go without discussing land use as well. We absolutely, absolutely, absolutely need to be upzoning more effectively near our rapid transit, especially around our light rail, which is pitifully served by absolutely terrible land use right now. And the key to good transit is good land use. We can't do one or the other. We need to do both. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Thanks for this item a lot, and thanks for the public comment on this item. I was going to approach this subject as you're talking about transportation and Vision Zero and the importance of the things. That is building public safety and the needs of public safety. We need to be considering, again, as tech accountability will be, or tech will be a more major portion of the future Vision Zero issues, how accountability can be included, tech accountability can be included as a part of the process of what is public safety. I'm really trying to learn how, these subjects work hand in hand towards a future that we're trying to build. And that is one of positive sustainability, which is a concept that we don't really talk about anymore, considering we've been through COVID-19 and now in war with Russia and war with Israel, and Israel's war and Hamas's war and Middle East war that's going on. Why don't we talk about positive sustainability anymore? Well, I understand why, but we should be. I hope we can. If we can, the items that how people talked about here, public comment today, the things we need to be considering and working towards, we've taken a step back from that a bit, maybe, with the new administration coming in. I hope we can move forward in how we're working on that stuff in the past. It was really good effort that we need to continue that good effort and make clear as a community we have to move past the single passenger automobile use, vehicle use. So how we learn how to do that together, man, that's so important. That's positive sustainability and the kind of stuff we should be talking about so much more than continual war. And I just hope we can learn how to talk about peace and what is our positive sustainability, such as.
Thank you. Back to the committee.
Thank you. Start with Councilmember Ortiz.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the work of DOT on implementing the city's transportation plans. And I for making transportation more accessible for our working class residents. So I had two questions. Is there an estimated time for the draft outreach plan for the Story Keys Complete Streets project to be complete?
I don't know that off the top of my head. We'll make sure we follow up with that. The folks who are running that project are just parallel enough to me to not know exactly what that is, but we'll follow up with you after this meeting on that.
Nice, no worries. What sort of planning is there for outreach for the Small Business Smart Pass program?
Council member, I'm not sure if I know what the smart pass mean for.
For businesses, obviously parking is a hot commodity right now, especially with more dense building. I think this small business smart pass was for employees of small businesses to get like discounted rates for.
That's right. There is a program to get small businesses downtown those passes.
Yep.
Let John go for it.
Yeah, I thought you were referring to a VTA smart pass but that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about more of a parking?
The small, yeah, the parking lot, yeah.
I don't think I have a schedule for that in terms of when that's going to be done, but we used to have something like that where we would provide vouchers for parking for small businesses downtown. We changed that to make it simpler, and we just had 90 minutes free and had employers just buy into that. But I'm not sure if I have an answer right now. I'll have to get back to you on what the deployment of a Smart Pass is going to look like.
Okay, thank you. Looking forward to those updates.
Would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I move the item.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I'll just say I'm excited to see the projects that are being done to improve, to have separated bike lanes and improve other modes of transit. Shows what would have been possible with much better urban design way back in terms of designing it this way to begin with, and obviously it's going to take us a lot of time and money to do it right. I'm only going to point out, as I always do, the priorities that are being focused on are the right ones, absolutely. But if you look at the map on page 9, you continue to see that void in North San Jose, that difficulty of connecting east to west to get into North San Jose, where a lot of development has happened and is happening, and it's just a difficult configuration with the highways there to make safe bike routes, but it's kind of highlighted by that map, the big void of good connected bikeways in the north part of the city.
That's why we're doing the North San Jose transportation plan right now with your office. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Okay, let's vote. All right, that motion carries 3-0 with 2 absent. We have time for open forum. I'm going to limit open forum to 1 minute. Let's see who we have.
We have 3 requests to speak for open forum. Blair, Diane, and Jordan. You will have 1 minute to speak.
How'd that meeting go, Cindy?
On behalf of your BPAC, we respectfully request that you include your Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee in your discussions about the placement of the cameras in the Speed Safety Pilot Program. We'd appreciate being able to help make our city safer. Last year, traffic fatalities exceeded homicides in San Jose. Half the deaths were pedestrians and bicyclists killed by motorists. Last year, 3,000 people were seriously injured in accidents that required SJPD attention. Uncountable people have had to visit emergency rooms and urgent care centers, and people who bike and walk frequently experience near misses. So again, we respectfully request that you include us, your BPAC, in your discussions about the placements of these cameras, and we're here to help you do what's possible. And thank you, and thanks for making San Jose a great place to live. And thanks for staying for this long meeting. So appreciate everything that's going on here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Jordan Moldow, District 3, with getting near the end of the budget season, and I know we're looking to either make some cuts or raise some revenues. I wanted to offer a suggestion of raising some revenues from our parking structures. Right now, our parking structures, we vastly undercharge people for parking compared to what it could be. 90 minutes free at a bunch of our downtown parking structures, and then after that, it's very cheap after that. I think even just a small increase in the parking structure fees or a slight decrease in the duration of the free parking, I think could help the city budget and could help with some of our previous agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, thank you, Claire Beekman. I'm going to really try to advocate for Paul Soto to be allowed back into the public comment space to attend public meetings. I think he's earned the right to that space. Good luck how we can work on it. I can write letters and stuff. We can talk about it. For myself, what would I want to talk about? Oh, working on future digital billboards and kiosk issues. Really good luck as I talked on items today, how we talk about ideas of accountability, openness, and being honest with each other. It takes real work and effort from yourselves, and I know it's going to be a lot of work. I can try to help you as much as possible, that you got to be honest with us in how you talk about it. You can't lie to us, guys. good luck in that effort and what you're going to be able to do. It's with that, good luck that we really try to work towards concepts of peace and negotiation and dialogue to solve our current world issues instead of continual war. We can do it with dialogue. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We are adjourned at 4:14 p.m.